Good evening, dear friends. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Tonight at Generation Zil media platform and our council platform, we, together with our colleagues from KCAP and Echelon companies, are conducting a very important event for us. This is the first public event and the discussion of the concept of the master plan, ZIL South, Moscow. The primary discussion of the concept will help us to take into account all opinions, all expert positions, to consider the valuable comments of the professional community and to bring them into the final project. This is really important for us, and I'd like to say special thanks to Sergey Kuznetsov, Mars School of Architecture, for supporting our initiative. I'd like to say thank you to the website of Arc Council of Moscow and Mars Generation Zil platforms as well. Please subscribe to Generation Zil projects in Facebook, in Instagram. Do visit the website of Generation Zil to know more about the project and follow the further development of the new neighborhood in Moscow. Today, in our discussion, we have the following participants. The active participants, Yana Samakaeva, the senior specialist of KCAP Bureau, Mikhail Trinkner, associated partner of KCAP Bureau, and Maxim Klinkovich from Echelon Group, head of territorial group of the Department of Echelon. And today, in the open council discussion, we have Sergey Kuznetsov, the chief architect of Moscow, Vitaly Lutz, the head of the Prospective Projects Institute of Master Plan of Moscow, and Andrei Gnezdilov, Astozhenka Bureau, Alexander Asadov Bureau, Vladimir Potkin from Reserve Architectural Bureau, Tsimaev, and Nikolai Rishenko. Partners of Tsimaev and Rushenko Company, Mikhail Pasonkin, Most Project 2, Vadim Grekov, Most Project 2, Timur Bashkaev Architectural Bureau, Nikita Tokarev, the director of Mars School, Yulia Otneva, and Yuri Borisov, CEO of UNK Project Bureau. I hope he will join us too. I'd like to give the floor to Sergey Kuznetsov for the word of introduction. Please, Sergey. I would like to welcome you all, colleagues. Good evening. This is another new format that we are trying to deploy. Although we have already been discussing, as in a similar format, the project of Badayevsky factory. In my opinion, the involvement of different members of the architectural community in these kind of discussions is wonderful. It's great that we regularly discuss the important sites in the city, and together we come to ideas, solutions, and they promote the further growth of architecture. And everybody knows that the quality of architecture in Moscow is going up. Myself, as the chief architect, I am ambitious enough to keep developing it further. Today, with the mayor of Moscow, we were discussing 3 large design projects, and he again reiterated to the importance of focusing on the quality of architectural environment. And he said that we need to keep working on the quality until we feel it's good enough. Otherwise, it's better not to build at all if we can't reach a high architectural level. This is the attitude of the mayor of Moscow. So we understand that this is a holistic story, and it's a set of not only the facades, number of floors and colors of the building, but the general thing that gives us the impression of the refurbished environment. It consists of so many details, so many elements. I saw the project that the colleagues are going to present now, and I was deeply impressed. This is the level of development. This is the level of detail we need to keep implementing in our city projects. So I'd like you to consider it together with the colleagues and express your comments. We have a large online audience tonight, and I hope we'll convey our ideas. And by the way, a large project of renovation, we started the bids there already, and we anticipate high quality of works there. I hope it will be not worse and maybe even better than in the projects Moscow has been implementing by now. So in this way, I think it's really crucial to keep discussing the things that are at the frontier today, so that tomorrow's frontiers have even a better quality and yield a progress. I do hope for a fruitful discussion, and please express your ideas, your thoughts, your visions, your evaluation, and maybe some practical devices that you may recommend, and maybe some tools that you are using can be implemented in this project. And not only, let's take a systemic approach to our projects in general. Thank you. Let's get started. Thank you very much, Sergey. Jana, may I ask you to put our second slide, please? In fact, the work we're going to talk about is the work of a developer. It's Etalon, KCAP, City Makers. And so today I'm wearing two hats, not as a council member, but rather as a member of this large and diverse team. Before giving the floor to the colleagues from KCAP, I want to say that we paid special attention to the analysis of environment, analysis of all of the urban planning restrictions, specifics of our site, etc. And we realized that we need to take a complex approach to the environment, and that's the approach we're using currently. And for us, it's really, really important. We're very happy that the client is fully sharing our approach, and together with the project team, we are going to enhance it. And in fact, in parallel to each other, and I would say even at the crossroads with each other sometimes, we continue working, and we're analyzing not only the existing provisions, but also we are regularly improving our vision of the site. We're enhancing the master plan. This is the work headed by KCAP, and already now we're thinking about the landscape, social, cultural concept, the function of the ground floors, and all the matters regarding architecture and development. Well, you probably know that above the first line of construction, we already had an architectural council, and we are taking into account transportation, logistics, and entertainment as well. I'd like to give the floor now to Jana Samarkova, and she will present the master plan. Jana, the floor is yours, please. Hello, colleagues. Thank you so much for your kind invitation. We're really happy to present you the working version of the master plan. It's about a year that KCAP is in this project now. For these two stages that we developed together with the colleagues, we developed a lot, and we will give you the summary of the project and the strategy of the master plan. You know, it's wonderful that Etalon not just took the site and started building, but they saw the huge potential of this site. So they decided to interpret and improve the experts. And this will be a house for 25,000 future inhabitants. For ZIL South, for the first of all, we needed to improve the flexible spatial structure framework to integrate it in the city fiber, and within the framework of this fiber, city fiber, we develop the concepts that will help every site to at the same time, we want to create a dynamic, innovative neighborhood. We suggest a safe and convenient design that is human-centristic, that promotes the human connections. We want to create an active and 24/7 active neighborhood that will give a threshold for further growth and improvement of quality of the surrounding territories. A few years ago, the suggestions on the territorial planning were presented. They laid the foundations for our master plan. We have analyzed this document and we found the strengths, 85 meters, social infrastructure, average density in the neighborhood, and also the density increasing closer to the riverbank and metro station. There are weaknesses, connections with the surrounding area, mainly via tunnels and now also on-ground passages. Also, traffic, roads full of traffic that are adjacent to the site, absence of the magnetic areas in the territory, and the absence of quality space within the territory. The territory was monotonous and it lacked big cultural functional magnets. To enrich the city fiber and to make this project strong, we suggest to make two interventions there. First of all, to make a central park. It will not only connect ZIL to the embankment in the eastern part and connect it to the metro, it will create a special space inside of the urban structure. Second thing is it's a pedestrian boulevard. It will connect ZIL metro station and ZIL East on the riverbank. This boulevard will become an attractive route and it will be surrounded by a series of small squares. It will create a friendly pedestrian axis and it will connect the entire social infrastructure. In its turn, it will connect the two metro stations on the riverbank with the ZIL metro station. In this way, it will become a city of short distances, when within 15-minute walk, each inhabitant will be able to go from his doorstep to important social places. On this scheme, you can see the existing document and the PPT framework plan and our master plan. This is the working version of the master plan. This creates an attractive context and a robust basis for the development itself. Since we have no other spaces apart from the PPT framework, we create all the developments are taking place within this space, and the public spaces are there too. The hierarchy of public spaces is solved by the Excel scale. It's parks and embankments. L, boulevards and squares. M, it's there's M and excess. Excess is already the terraces and balconies. So the scale is going downsized. You can see here the central pedestrian boulevard on which around which we have the central square of the neighborhood and two community plazas, also the business boulevard with business square over here. and it will welcome everybody coming by metro, and also the Embankment Boulevard. It connects with the first square of the neighborhood and a series of small pockets along the riverbank. We also suggest a series of open itineraries inside of the district, and they are penetrating through all parts of the region, connecting them into one. As it has been mentioned before, this harsh infrastructure around is cutting off this district from the rest of the city. That's why it's really important to build additional ties with the city. The overhead bridges across the river, pedestrian underground passages and on-ground passages. What matters here is also the social characteristics of the future neighborhood. Who is going to live there? Which functions are they going to use? We develop 3 daily scenarios depending on the users. Local population, tourists and workers living in the territory, and workers living outside the territory. We also took into consideration the content of the ground floors. We look at the features of the schools and kindergartens of the 21st century. They need to involve the new methods of teaching and education to be attractive for children. Secondly, we have large sites for educational and enlightening functions. So we suggest the social infrastructure to have dual use. We have lectorium, exhibition spaces, stadiums, and children playgrounds should become part of the well-being of all the residents. They should be available during evening, daily, and during the weekends, etc. We also revised the road network and tried to make it multimodal to make sure that every person is comfortable while moving around. ZIL South is about architecture for humans. We promote public transport here, and we have separate lanes for buses. In the diagonal boulevard, we fully exclude vehicles, and we allocate it for public transport only. This makes the boulevard really friendly for pedestrians. We also suggest to change the trajectory of some roads to take away part of the traffic from the diagonals, to make the traffic near the school junction as safe as possible. At the place of hop on, hop off for the school children, we create a safe space for comfortable parking and children going on and off the buses. The vehicle traffic is not there at all. It's pedestrian to connect this road to the riverbank. We also have a network of bicycle routes throughout the territory. It connects with the main road along the embankment in 3 places, 1, 2, 3. It connects with the Likhachov Avenue here, with ZIL Vostok under this highway, and with a new parallel Moscow Railroad here, and with ZIL Art side diagonally. ZIL South territory will become an archipelago of 4 different zones. The blue are this zone is called the river quarter. Then we have urban gardens in yellow. Park quarters are in green. They are connected to the park as much as possible. And the red are the urban quarters, the street quarters with various functions. The urban construction principles and atmosphere of each quarter will be directly tied with a functional magnet it is attached to. Living near water, or in the garden, or in the business quarter, or by the park will also be a brand new proposal on the retail market in Moscow. Here you can see what the quarters look like. In the river quarters, the typology and space of the buildings is as open as possible and connected to the river. Urban gardens, they have a specific interior with urban villas and greenery. In park quarters, they have very wonderful, like very beautiful position. It has the highlights to maximize the ties with the business quarter there. The business, more traditional perimetric quarter with more focuses, is functionally saturated and is located near the metro station. To strengthen the spatial carcass, the structure, and to stick to the concept, from the very start, we develop a number of guidelines and principles for the development and public spaces. In this way, each site can become unique and yet remain within the framework of our principles. Here, you can see how the above-mentioned aspects find their place and role in this district by turning it into a happy city. I'd like to conclude and say that we are working within our master plan over public space systems, diversity and character areas, connected multimodal mobility system, mixed-use strategy, 3D city, and then we develop the regulation. And then I'd later dwell upon each strategy separately. The inspiration for this project was the pre-industrial landscape of the past. It's the truffle tree, little forest, and there were open fields with ponds there, and Muscovites in the past used to come here for a relaxing holiday by the riverbank. We transform it into a city of 21st century. It is infused with the urban culture. In this neighborhood, we will have modern people living. They take care of their health. In ZIL South, sporty lifestyle is promoted. The priority is given to the pedestrians and cyclists and public bus users. It's a sustainable district with a functional landscape. It promotes educational and social programs as aspects of social well-being. As it has been mentioned before, the framework concept of the master plan involves 5 scales: XL, parks and embankments; L, boulevard and squares; M, green routes; S, gardens and yards; and XS, it's the terraces and balconies. We believe that the landscape should be functional and it should reflect attractive design. We deploy bio-drainage system in all our public spaces. These are the technologies of retaining and treating the rainwater. These are dryable ponds and sites. The mini drainage. We plant trees for to protect the environment and minimize the negative impact of the environment. We integrate the trees to make our environment human and humanistic. We minimize plastic and make it sustainable. Let me tell you briefly about each scale. Parks and embankments. Parks have their own ideas and design. The central and northern parks are united, and it's very important that they tie with a truffle garden or Truffelova Rocha. And it's really interesting to see how one park is transcendent with another, and going from one park to another is another adventure. The parks are active throughout the entire year. They have place and role for quiet leisure sports. In wintertime, our ponds become ice skating rinks, and the hills become the sleighing slopes or ski slopes. So we have Rocha, fields and ponds and the water nature at the riverbank. Rocha is as natural as possible. It has a real forest to protect the neighborhood from the noise coming from the railroad and the new highway. It has hills of different height. The Central Park has 2 areas, the sunny one inside the urban area, and the natural zone of the park is connecting with the urban tissue. The healthy areas have more greenery. The pedestrian paths are wider. In some places, the greenery covers asphalt completely. The main route is in the central park. It contains also secondary routes and the neighborhood greenery. Here you can see how the landscape is organized in the northern part of the park. And you can see the natural part with the flooded areas, city part with terraces and active functions. The promise of what the new park will look like, is seen at this axonometry. We can also see here how our main route and the park concept are integrated in the embankment. The borders are almost seamless. One park is transforming into another. The second scale, L, is about pedestrian boulevards. A pedestrian boulevard in the central part of the neighborhood, the business boulevard from embankment of the river, and also I have to say that the design is associated with the typical area the boulevard is located in. The central square is the pulsing heart of the neighborhood, where all the junctions meet together, the parks, the diagonal boulevards, etc. The size of the square enables to conduct different open space events there, markets, lectures, fairs, exhibitions, etc. So we talked about the squares, the first central square. We also propose to organize a community plaza on the way of pedestrian boulevard. The squares will be functionally supported by the community centers, and there will be some bike, scooter rental, etc. Electric vehicle rental, etc. They are located between the first and second line of construction development. The second area is located closer to the business boulevard. The business square is where the metro passengers will come. It has functional diversity of the buildings around. Apart from the above mentioned squares, we have one more square. This is the first square of the neighborhood, near the first line of development, and the frontal business square near metro station. The project also envisages a network of the pedestrian alternative routes. They are supported by active functions, and they will connect all the sites of ZIL neighborhood, and it will create a kind neighborhood atmosphere, not only within the yards, but also in the district in general. The recognizable uniform pavement, mini drainage, and are the main principles of these routes. We also developed the guidelines for the yards. We think about the strategy of a temporary landscape tied with the rows of construction. It will help us to build also temporary facilities and to develop gradually the entire neighborhood and the landscape. We keep in mind the environment, and we care about the quality. So we make suggestions about safe pedestrian, underway passages, bridges, etc. Let me tell you about the mosaic. The four typical areas: river quarters, urban, park quarters, and business quarters. Each of them conforms to a particular set of urban construction principles, landscape, and typology. What is the river quarter about? Use of the river, the mid-story buildings, high dominance on the second line, the maximization of view, refurbishment, separation of private and public spaces of the yards by visual barriers and heights. The construction complies with all the principles and becomes a pioneer in discovering the entire potential of the territory. Here's the bridge developed by Echelon. In the river quarters, we will deploy the new progressive technologies of construction. The wooden panels and sections will make this area even more attractive. What do we mean by privacy and protected neighborhoods? It's urban gardens, place for urban farming, the greenery and plants for these low-rise buildings. It's a humane scale of the environment. Life by the park. It's when you have a park instead of a yard, when you live in a unique architectural building that is the business card, the window of the entire neighborhood, when we maximize the range of various technologies here and the richness of environment. As for living in urban quarter, it's about proximity to metro station, active and functional environment, enclosed and semi-enclosed traditional quarters with high-rise access. Strict landscape design. We mentioned the places for landscape architectural dominance where the design should be beyond imagination. It's an invitation for the architects to leave their trace in ZIL South. These facilities, these buildings will be the iconic ones and they will be remembered by all the visitors and inhabitants. We developed urban three scales of principal guidelines. Here are the examples of principal guidelines. A spread of its density of distribution and human scale. We allocate here different high-rise accents, different heights, recognizable heights, and also the uniform silhouette of the development, urban background from 3 to 8 stories. It's a well-known principle that can be observed on the best historical streets of Moscow and Europe. For each typical zone, we develop its principal guidelines. For every site, we have a certificate with the main principles, and they will be working as the terms of reference, and they will be given to each architect of each site. At first sight, it may seem that it's only housing in this neighborhood, but in fact, we're activating, according to our PPT framework, almost all the ground floor facilities. And this will outline a really, truly active environment 24/7. The most active areas are embankments, parks, boulevards full of retail and cafes, community plazas with community centers and other supportive functions, supermarkets, services, offices, co-workings are concentrated along the public transport routes. We have the new typology in especially dense neighborhood. We have a small percentage of housing on the ground floors as well for the diversity of choice. As it was said, we didn't mark the places for large cultural facilities, so we suggest a double use of schools. Exhibition spaces and lectoriums should be part of the school and should be available for the residents in the evening and night time. The last important chapter of the master plan I'm going to talk about is the multimodal mobility system. We promote a human-oriented design. ZIL South is a small city of short distances. When within 15-minute walk, we cover the whole range of needs of people. It's a healthy quarter with streets full of trees, minimum traffic, and minimum CO2 emissions. Traditional set vehicle, metro, bus, and pedestrian is expanded to set the new priorities. Number one is human, and all the other members of traffic are ensured a comfortable and barrier-free movement. Each of them have their own area: pedestrians, cyclists, public transport, cars, flexible greenery and parking. In ZIL South, we promote public transport. Buses will have their dedicated lanes, and in this case, people have a new, let's say, habit of using quality public transport. We also know that safe public transport is the policy of the entire city of Moscow. This is the scheme of public transport. Main streets of Moscow in red and blue are the neighborhood streets, and the ties of our district with the existing network of roads. ZIL is a destination point without through traffic, most probably. So we decided to revise the intensity of traffic that PPT suggested and to insert multimodality there. Another thing that we need to consider is the railroad that will the new railroad that will cut off the ZIL South from ZIL Art neighborhood even more. You can see the main roads in dark red. All the other local roads are in yellow. I'd like to say that with our suggestions on improvement of the transport network, the road network, we are not deteriorating all the requirements. I'd like to say that we are keeping the lanes for public transport, diagonal lines for vehicles, for public transport, the vertical ones for vehicles, and we take away the main vehicle traffic to the sides diagonally to organize a safe, complicated junction, crossroad with different passages. We developed the existing additional ties with the urban infrastructure. The territory connects with the highway from embankment in 3 places, here, here, and here, without crossroad, closer to the center with a crossroad, and under the bridge, a new main road. And Blikhatov Prospect, we connect with it with this crossroad, and this is MKZD. Centrally, we connect to it. Our transport scheme will be modeled and calculated. It contains flexible input, so in the event of problems during operation, we can always adjust it to different conditions. I'd like you to pay special attention to the road infrastructure, and it will be funded by city investment. It's very important to synchronize the road construction with the development plan. On this layout, you see the public transport routes, and here you can see the suggested cycling network. The project envisages a cycling network, not just the blunt streets, and the 3 possible scenarios of daily and weekend routes depend on the users. The local population, families with children, will use recreational structure and the district routes daily. The tourists will come here during weekends. The business people who come here for work, they will use the functions here. Those who work beyond the territory will choose the shorter distance to the nearest bus stop or metro. We also think about safe environment. Uncrowded crossroads, smart traffic lights, safe areas near schools and kindergartens, safe passages near central square and junctions, and also barriers to reduce the speed of vehicles. The nature of the streets ties with the functional magnets they are adjacent to. Thus, we have the city highways, park streets, park alleys, pedestrian roads, and neighborhood streets. We'll show you a few profiles of our roads. This is a typical cross-section of the main district road. You can see a generous 2-meter area for cyclists, 4 meters of pavement. For pedestrians, we have flexible green area, trees. As parking disappears from here, we allocate this space to the green area so that we continue the greenery visually throughout the entire district. On the diagonal park, we have bus lanes only. The pedestrian roads are wider. We have good terraces. We have bio-drainage trees in the green area and also playgrounds. As the buses drive closer to the urban connections, We can see the pavement there. This is the boulevard along the Central Park. Grown-up trees, greenery, functional vertical streets with the maximum parkings. And from these streets, we drive in the most parts of the site, Embankment Boulevard. And no vehicle transport makes the riverbank space friendly for cyclists and pedestrians. It brings river closer to the yards and the buildings. In the junction between the embankment and the park, we see both parks merging together. I want to say that all the profiles were developed considering the organization and rules of special machinery accessibility. Online platform Generation Zil is an important aspect to support our project. From the very beginning, Etalon and City Makers organized Generation Zil platform. It hosts different events like the discussion today, where the experts discuss the new potential of the city. We involve the future inhabitants, workshops with stakeholders, and position to raise opinion for any participants is a distinctive feature of our project. We presented the working version of the master plan to you today. This is the result of the maximum coordination with all stakeholders. In the future, we'll soon be developing the final version of the master plan, and now we are open to your comments. I'd like to say in the end that we wish we would get the support from the city on the following things. Human centristic neighborhood, organization of bus lanes, and projection of the road along the riverbank. Second, the relevance of the central main road MKZD that will cut off ZIL South from ZIL Art. Is it so necessary to build it there or not? Quality implementation of the city road network and according to the master plan proposals. Number 5, all the ties with the adjacent neighborhoods. And number 6, support of open public spaces and intra-district routes internally and no barring and fences. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you very much, Jana. Indeed, it was a complex, big work done, and I switch to the questions now. We have several questions from the members of the Architectural Council. You can ask questions to the colleagues from KCAP or from to Maxim as well, the client. Okay, Mikhail, please. Thank you very much. I want to go back to the Nikita speaking. I want to go back to the question of using private vehicles. I think it's a very important issue for the master plan. I heard that you will have about 25,000 inhabitants in this district. Knowing the average number of cars in Moscow, I can suggest that they will have at least 15,000 private cars there. Do you have an idea where these cars can be kept? Underground parkings or separate multi-story parkings in the streets, in the yards? And what will happen if they drive out to the streets? Will there be enough carrying capacity of the roads for these vehicles? If the number of vehicles is not about 15,000, then the question is, why do you think you will have much less vehicles? And frankly speaking, in axonometry and in the profiles, I didn't see any traces of private cars at all. Almost no traces. And it looks like you don't have any parkings at all. Of course, internally in the district, the probability of using cycles, scooters, etc., it is high. But what to do if your resident has a car and he is going to drive somewhere far away? This is one of the most important questions that can significantly impact the implementation of this beautiful concept. Thank you.
Yeah, I should answer to that. Yeah. maybe first in general, let's say the car use is also related to the attractiveness of public space and how soft modes are given space. And we think if you give good alternatives, then also, especially in urban transport, other modes than the private car is more efficient, faster, and more comfortable. And by that, the total amount of private car use will be reduced. So people really need to use the car. Can also drive more easily at the end. That's at least experiences from Zurich. Also, Holland has some experiences. Kind of Western European cities who try to change, let's say, the prioritization from car traffic to a balanced multimodal street layout. That's basically what we are trying to do. And this is also, we think, this is a new development in Moscow, but what you see in Moscow in the city center before the World Championship, done also by the advice by Jan Gehl. Also, the city center of Moscow changed quite a lot in the last 10 years in terms of the balance between private car and the active mobilities. And we think we should take this path and need to develop that further also in new locations. So this is a bit the general answer, and maybe Jana wants to answer more to the detailed questions, how the parking is solved and these things.
Thank you so much, Mikhail. Indeed, in every profile, we have a lane for private cars. The only place where we don't have private vehicles is the diagonal boulevard. Almost in every profile, we have places, the pockets for parking. Yes, the number of them is minimized, but the profile is so flexible that in case of necessity, we can increase the number of parking lots. As for regular parkings, they will be for the residents, they will be allocated underground, one level underneath and two levels underneath. These are problems to be easily tackled, but the concept was very well described by Mikhail. Let me add a couple of words too, please. The special thing of this territory feature is that from almost every side it has a restriction. It's either water or railroad, and only one side of our site is adjacent to Likhachov Highway, Likhachov Avenue. And these restrictions, we try to convert them into an opportunity. For this, we try to think how to facilitate the movement inside of the district. We looked at a few interesting examples in Scandinavian countries. When a developer is building an underground parking and he puts a car sharing service there, and this car sharing is available for the residents only. And now we're thinking, can we change the behavior of our users, so to say? And considering that this project will be built within 10 years, it's wise to look into the future, and we need to consider the limitations of the site. We need to either build a bridge across the river or build a bridge over the railroad. There are some more challenging things here. Thank you very much. Andrei Gnezdilov, please. Next question. I have 3 questions. May I quickly ask them, please? First question. Your novelty, the Central Park, as far as I understand, it is located in the limits of the planned site, or is it altering the design and planning of the site? Can you specify what this site is of the park in the northeastern part, especially? Second question: availability, accessibility of your site as far as I understand, the transport accessibility of the residential areas is from the neighboring street. And I am wondering what does the profile of the neighboring street look like? I want to see how the pedestrians are moving. So what is changing with the introduction of this central park and the boulevard? I wanted to clarify that too. Isn't it changing? Isn't it altering the PPT framework? I mean, the boulevard that goes from northeast to southwest, this Z-shaped boulevard. Does it add more public spaces? And in general, what is the percentage of the road network and the public use territory? These are the three questions. Who is going to start? Jana, please. Yes, indeed. In our project, we envisage to organize public spaces within the borderline of the site, and we wanted to gain the support from the city. Do we have a possibility to keep these territories open and publicly available? We developed a flexible design. In case of necessity, we can, of course, build fences there, but we don't want to do it if it's possible. Accessibility on the site is from the external highways. That is to say, we drive into the underground parking from the outside highway. The internal network of routes that you are talking about is available for special vehicles. It's not for private cars. It's for special firefighting machines, ambulances. It is available for cyclists and scooterists. And second question, we haven't analyzed our balance yet. We haven't analyzed it. It's about the second stage of the project. No, to my second question, I didn't get your answer. Do you want me to show? Yes, I will show now. I hope you can see the screen. This greenery, the pedestrian boulevard as well, it can all be closed with fences. We are working within the limit, within the borderline of the site, but we want to keep this territory open. And we don't want to face or counterface the residents who want us to put fences over here. I hope they will also welcome the decision to keep it without fences. As for this internal route, is this what you were asking about? Yes, it's available for fire and firefighting and special machines. Internally in this territory, there are no private cars at all. The access is from the external streets and the drive-in into the parkings too. How do we go to these narrow houses? Yes, where you show with your mouse now. How is the transport? What kind of transport? Service transport. Service transport. We have a zone along the facades here. Here we can allow the firefighting machines to drive. Wait, these are residential houses? Yes, only the ground floors are non-residential. What about private cars? How do they drive in? This is the main road. We drive in the underground parking. So it's a long underground parking. It's a drive-through parking. Well, this is the whole site. See, and we suggest half of it, make it a park. Because of that, we make the development on the rest of the site denser and more dense. And for these buildings, there will be an underground parking quite narrow but efficient, I hope. They drive in from here and from here. Okay, what about special machines? They can drive anywhere they want? Yes. Okay, I got it. Thank you. I want to say a few things as well, Peter, if it's possible. Yes, please. Look, since we have the experience of operation of the houses, we are thinking about the cost of operation and the burden that will be taken by the residents in those areas where we will have public spaces inside of the construction site. It's a complex issue, but we believe that we shouldn't build fences. You know, we want to have open and transparent quarters with informal ties throughout the territory. On the other hand, we try to design the public spaces in a way so that we wouldn't be motivated to bar them and make them part of the district only and make them publicly available and open. On the third step, and let me add, I'm sorry, the master plan is developed in 3 stages, and all the mathematical calculations about the time it takes you to go to the main roads, highways, pedestrian burden, vehicle burden, social infrastructure, because we will have a big secondary school there, 2,500 students, and how can they safely get on the bus, get off the bus? This is in step 3 of our master plan development. Okay, colleagues, we're a bit getting beyond our schedule. I'd like you to respond to the questions as briefly as you can. Vladimir Plotkin, please, your question. Well, Andrei partially asked this question, but in the suggested master plan, we have the clear borders of the green territory. We have the broad entry to the Baywater. From Moscow River, we have a narrow green boulevard, but it is not straight. It is going through the junction called Community Square. We go to the right and then we go to the left. Is this your intention, or you had to adapt this corner to the development that Bureau Moscow suggested? I'm just curious. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yes, let me show you the plan again. You're talking about this exit, yes? In fact, unfortunately, we have 2 ties with the Mark Chagall embankment only. Can you make, yeah. So we have only 2 ties with Mark Chagall embankment. This is an underground passage for pedestrians here, and the second one is under this highway continuation of the Zaton embankment to Mark Chagall embankment. In our proposal, we tried to link to this junction because this is the only possible connection. It was also possible to walk directly from here to here and turn here, but to simply go straight all the way to the embankment, it wasn't possible. This because we have this mandatory junction. You know, in fact, it's a pity that this whole highway is so busy and it's so final that it chops us almost completely off the embankment. But with this route, with this itinerary, we'll try to direct people to this place, and the quality of this underground passage should be, of course, enhanced. Thank you. Thank you, Yana. Yuri, let me say a few words about this highway. Can you bring back the plan, please? The master plan? I asked Maxim Kondebaila to connect, and Vitaly Lutz should be here as well. This embankment, yes, it used to be in the past the project of urban planning, and this was supposed to be one of the main city highways. But we approved the plan and we took away the main part of the traffic deeper into the island. And after third ring, it turns to Simonovskaya embankment and it goes further to the right. You cannot see it on this map. So yes, indeed, we have this highway for vehicles. We need to work with the profile to make it a normal embankment, but vehicles driving along the embankment, it's something normal. And there are many, like Crozet, Promenade Anglais in Nice, and Copacabana, etc. So please try to take it easy. It's not that this highway chops it off, but indeed we need to enhance the profile of this road and let's make it into a quiet boulevard with slow traffic, comfortable traffic lights and comfortable pedestrian passages. I want to say that this is not a highway. It's not a high-speed highway, not at all. Sergey, may I say something? One more. We have a question from our audience about the future of the pedestrian bridge. There was a pedestrian bridge in this diagonal, ZIL South, ZIL Art. This bridge, regarding this bridge, so far there are no plans to build it. What I mean is the city is not planning to build this bridge because it's about expenditures, etc. But we need to, well, nothing prevents us to prepare the papers for urban construction. If an investor expresses an initiative to build a bridge, and we have examples of investors investing in the bridge, let's consider these scenarios. Building it technically is possible. We just need to find a way to implement the project. There is no big request to build it at the moment now because people are not living there yet. On the other hand, the design has been approved, but we need to understand for the sake of what kind of communication we should build this bridge. Building it beforehand for the sake of beauty is not feasible at the moment. But if the investor has some initiatives, so summarizing, you can build a bridge, there is documentation there. The city is not planning to build it yet because there is no demand, let's say, because on both sides of the river we don't have so many people living to walk on the bridge, but we can discuss it with the investor. I have a question from Maxim Kandebaila from the audience. Are you planning to have an overhead road? Maxim, who is involved in ZIL project, he is writing about this roadway. You know, regarding the roadway, I would say that the investor can play a role. If they want to build a roadway, let's move on and discuss it. Thank you. I have two more questions from Architectural Council, and we have two questions from the audience. Yulia Borisova, please, your question. Yuli Borisov, I'm sorry, it's not Yulia, it's Yuli Borisov. Yana, can you show us the map with public transport and metro? I guess it's here. Yuli, is this the slide in question? Yuli is off now. He will come back, I hope. Okay, let's then take Alexander. I'm here, Peter. Okay. My question is, it's probably a belated question, but I have a feeling that this island is chopped off from the rest of the city and people will mainly take metro. Maybe it makes sense, maybe it's too late, but maybe it makes sense to turn this diagonal the other way and direct them to the metro with the shortest way, because this diagonal boulevard is exclusively pedestrian with no private cars, right? This is the first question. Second question, there was a comment during the discussion, and you mentioned that the vehicles drive straight into the underground parking, but we also have taxis, and we have situation when a young mom with small kids with a lot of products from the supermarket, she takes taxi and drives to the entrance of her apartment. These situations should be considered as well by the developers, and please try to work on these kind of scenarios, because they will be increasing. Car sharing, we kind of don't know if it's public transport or public transport, something in between. The third question is to you, Peter. Have you analyzed the already constructed ZIL project, because it's a similar project done by the same people? Have you ever done a survey about what the residents of this neighborhood think about their project? What does the city think about it, and what about other Muscovites? What do they think about this project? Have you analyzed the opinions, trying to mitigate the negativism of the ZIL project in the future project? These are my main questions. And one short question, I didn't see any entry into the island from the big roads. I think you could make more. I know experts know it better, but these are my questions. Let's start from the first questions. Jana, please. Junction and connected with ZIL Art, Maxim, you should take this question, because indeed we discussed this question a lot. Jana, please. I thought that we elaborated on this aspect in quite details. Inside of all these sites, we have open routes with no fences, no bars, and we have a lot of variants how to pass through, not only diagonally, but also from every side. You can walk internally, you can take a pedestrian boulevard, any route to get to the metro or to the bus, public transport stops. The shortest way between the two dots is the straight line. And experience shows that zigzags are not the most optimal way of getting as quick as possible to the metro. Why haven't you done it? Maybe it was somewhere in PPT. It's a question to PPT, I guess. When we got the PPT, you know, we have the PPT framework that we are not allowed to change. We have the red lines of the rows, and we have the border lines of the sides. And this diagonal is the dominant part of it. If we don't do this bridge, then we don't really understand why is the diagonal there. But we try to integrate the new ties into the master plan to mend it, you know, to mend the only connection of the neighborhood and to add alternative movement routes for the residents. Of course, the diagonal was in the PPT framework. Unfortunately, it cannot be corrected now. Let me say a few words about the diagonal, my friends. Look, I know that every next architect always knows better how it was better to do the project than the previous architect. I am really understanding and open about these things. And when people say that, well, it was here before and we can't change it, you know, the master plan of ZIL is something we have been seriously doing since 2012. And this territory was planned together with a well-known architect. You probably know him, Yuri Grigorian. You probably know him too. And so we were, together with him, we were creating this whole planning logic. Whatever you have with the embankment and movement inwards, and we not only have one diagonal but two diagonals going to the bridge on the embankment. Nobody cancelled the bridge, by the way. It may still be built. So these two diagonals were brought together on this peninsula, and it was planned to do a boulevard here. The metro, by the way, was not in the plan back then. The metro station appeared later when the entire planning was approved. But the Moscow Ring Road, a Moscow Railroad, Circular Road was there. And yes, we thought that not necessarily every street should have a direct access to the station. You may now say that you keep mending it now, but there's a certain logic in this project, and it was developed by talented architects previously and maintained the logic. Maybe you can express more empathy to the previously made decisions and try to analyze them. You can meet the architect who was creating it, talk to him, and see what he meant by his solution. In fact, there is no problem in access to the metro. And by the way, there is no metro yet. But today we have enough roads to get to the metro. Part of the embankment, Marc Chagall embankment, is built in a very nice way already, and we're planning to continue its further refurbishment. Bridge and ropeway and a certain transport dominant that diagonally comes from both parts of ZIL. This is something that we may develop in the future. And this is it. So I simply wanted to stop all these things from the very start, that you're correcting something here, you fail to do something there, etc. No, everything has its own logic. And these diagonals, they have their sense. And yes, not every axis is direct. If you look at the cities with interesting axes, Buenos Aires or Barcelona, not every diagonal in those cities is leading directly to the metro station. It doesn't mean they are not successful, though. I'm done. And by the way, I need to leave you soon. Okay, Sergey, thank you very much.
May I add something to that? I think this was a very good point of Sergey, because this is also what this is also our starting point. We call it always kind of radical pragmatism. So maybe some contradictory words in one, that we take the existing master plan and try to work on this master plan and trying to give more quality to this basic master plan. So I think we are totally in line with the idea to take the old work which was on the table and trying to develop based on this work further the whole plan.
Thank you so much, Mikhail. Maxim, you wanted to add something? Yes, a very short comment. For some reason, we are drawing our attention to the yet non-existent ZIL metro station. But let's remember that we have Technopark metro station, and our boulevard begins from Technopark metro station. And we have the Eastern District that will be soon built. So this diagonal, let's take a different look at this diagonal. If you keep in mind Technopark metro station and Eastern District, we suggested to allocate this boulevard for public transport. I don't see any big limitations here. You just need to take a helicopter view of this territory. Taking your question about ZIL art, of course, we looked at the works of our colleagues. to respond to the things that we wanted to make differently, we conducted not only social surveys, but also we analyzed the results. I don't want to comment on the things that we have changed, because things that we thought we can do better are reflected in the master plan and in the architecture. I don't want to comment on this separately, because initially the colleagues who built ZIL Art, they were claiming to build the entire territory. It's not nice now to comment on these survey results now. Okay. Thank you. I know Sergey wants to leave now. If you want to make some conclusive remarks, Sergey, please, and then we will continue. Yes, colleagues, I wanted to say thank you again. I heard that the colleagues from KCAP are building their work on the basis of the previous old master plan, and it is wonderful to hear that. And Maxim drew our attention to Technopark metro station. And this is how the cities are planned. You can't erase everything and start from the scratch. Indeed, it's a layer by layer work. I just want to say again that in this case, well, in many senses, we do pioneering work for Moscow. Maybe for the world, it's something usual to make interesting city spaces. But in Moscow, over these years, we have covered a big way, and we still need to move on. Because in the Soviet urban tradition, the values we're talking about, public spaces, ground floors, quarters, pedestrians, cyclists, all these things in the Soviet tradition, some of them existed, some didn't, but all these things are mainly reinvented and implemented in Moscow today anew. So please try to be more understanding about it. And if in this project we manage to make a big leap forward, it would be a huge success. So I call you all, I urge you all to take this approach and take into account that this is something new that we are doing. On one hand, we need to be realistic about the things that we will fail to implement, although in this project, I think everything is doable. And keep in mind that if successful, this project can be multiplied and it can be extrapolated to other projects. ZIL became an experiment already. I'm not talking about the mistakes here. And I wouldn't call them mistakes, in ZIL Art. It's just not everything happened smoothly. There were areas on the borderline between the investor's responsibility and city responsibility. But in general, the city of Moscow regards this project as an important innovative center. And then we have this adjacent bridge connecting to ZIL territory. So this is an important future city center, and we can see its contours already today. So when we do this project, we do a landmark project for Moscow, and I hope we will continue in the same spirit. And we are always open for communications. The city authorities are open to you. We are happy to participate in these kind of discussions. So from our side, we have Maxim Kandebaila in terms of contact, possible questions about pedestrian bridge, profile of embankment, etc. Please turn to Maxim Kandebaila. Please excuse me, I need to leave you. Thank you very much for your participation. And I hope we will get some important feedback from you. Yes, thank you very much, Sergey. We will continue now. We have two more questions from the members of the council. We will try to be as concise as possible. And we have two more questions to the developer. And then we will go to the presentations of the authors. I didn't see the new metro stations on the project. Did you consider the new lines of metro that come to ZIL? I didn't see them on the project. No, you didn't consider them? Well, let me reply. Whatever has been developed and prepared was prepared before the new scenarios of metro station allocation was done. We have step 3 or phase 3 of our master plan where we'll reflect the new information about the metro stations. And question from Nikolai Leshenkovich. A short question regarding the functions of all the ground floors facilities that are on this long boulevard. Please tell me, are you planning to do integration in the ground floors of the residential buildings, or are you already planning some public exhibition spaces, because exhibition spaces require a different geometry? On the master plan, I saw only residential buildings on both sides of the boulevard, but it's quite a long one. So this is my question. Peter will comment. As we told you before, in parallel, we are now developing the functions of the ground floors. On one hand, we know that we have PPT framework and we have our work with KCAP, but one of our super tasks is to create a functional program of the ground floors in each facility, in each lot, so that we would connect the functional program with the development of the street. And this is the work we're doing in parallel at the moment. Nikolai, did I answer your question? Good. We have 2 more questions from the audience for Maxim Berlovich. Question number 1. Tell us about the timeline, prices in the project in general. And second question, will this concept consider the past of the industrial past of the site? As for the timeline, let me remind you that the first row of construction has already been considered at the Architectural Council. Now we're undergoing expert council. We are planning to get the construction permit and start the construction and sales in Q1 next year. Internally at the committee, we developed a concept and we are moving fast towards the approval of the second line of construction. As for the history of the place, we conducted a social and cultural survey where we considered the industrial past. And secondly, at Generation Zil, we're planning to do the workshops and working groups with the residents of the neighborhood that I witnessed the industrial past of the neighborhood. So attention to the history is something we are considering. How will it be reflected in the architecture, in the public spaces, in the materials? This is something we don't know for sure yet, but it's under development. Let's say the work is underway. Okay, thank you, colleagues. And now let's go to the speeches. I would like to give the floor to Vitaly Lutz because his opinion is important for the client and for the designers. Please comment on what you have seen. Lutz, Vitaly. Thank you. Good evening, dear colleagues. First of all, I want to say thank you to the organizers of this extremely interesting event for the opportunity to participate. Myself, as an author of the design project, it's, you know, like watching a very interesting TV series on how the design structure that we embedded in the document evolves. It is strictly formatted. It is in line with all the laws and decrees. It's a strict format of urban planning document. And I want to point out, well, for myself, I pointed out that Indeed, the framework and the design structure enables to achieve an environmental quality. And in general, I would say it gives a diversity of construction, diversity of the types of urban environment. I found this very interesting. And I felt, to a certain degree, I felt a great deal of satisfaction because a very rigid framework that forms the basis of the document was really beautifully interpreted by you. At the same time, I want to say that many of the beauties of your interpretation were predefined in the framework, in the project. It's the central green core close to the Moscow railroad ring road, and the mesh, which was quite dense. It was mentioned as a strength in the master plan, and also the combination of transport and pedestrian elements in the public spaces. All these things were thoroughly developed and outlined. And it was interesting that colleagues from KCAP mentioned as a strength the strategy of different heights, a very dense crust near the waterline, and then higher high-rise buildings in the internal part of the territory for the sake of views. And I think it gave a very good multitude of these enclosed or semi-enclosed city districts, and also the landmark individual towers near the waterline. All the ties and bridges that have been shown, they are originated from the design. And of course, I understand your concern by different demarcations. But all these connections were preserved and maintained, and I don't think you can find more connections to the embankment that you have already found. From the advantages, I'd like to mention that I liked very much this transversal ZIL park from Moscow, from MCK to the embankment. I think it's a beautiful finding. From MCK to Zaton. The fact that you develop this element within the borders of the site and how to deal with it, I think it's a land, it relates to the land code difficulties. I think you just need to build it and then give it to the balance of the city so that the city owns it. And this will save this boulevard from the risk of having fences around. It will legitimize the boulevard, and this fundamental finding will belong to the city then. I found it interesting that you build a pedestrian boulevard, and this pedestrian axis was really interesting, and it fit well in the requirements that we have predefined. So I really experienced the satisfaction that the structure that we developed, framework that we developed, brought you to very interesting solutions. One more advantage to mention. Well, colleagues were criticizing, saying that the morphotype is a bit monotonous, but sorry, colleagues, the morphotype is something we do not work on in PPT. Morphotype is something the architects that will develop these sites will be handling. I like the morphotypes too, and the framework of these unique facilities, allocation, everything evokes positive emotions, and I really want to support you in this positivism. A bit of criticism from my side. It happened so that I saw this master plan only yesterday. I received a link and I saw it yesterday. And what I want to say is I think the principle of the residential yards overlooking the embankment, the zaton, maybe yes, maybe no. We thought that it's a unique opportunity to create on the embankment a very busy and vibrant place full of different services, facilities, etc. Because having such a big embankment is absolutely unique in Moscow. You know, there's only one place called Zaton in Moscow, Nagatinsky Zaton, and that's the place. And we thought it could be busier and more active. And we thought that this embankment also could have a road for vehicles, a small one. A pedestrian road, I have to say, is also a street within the red lines. So you're welcome. There's no contradiction here with the design project. And one more thing, I paid attention to the fact that this triangle, two boulevards, the northern and southern boulevards coming together and forming a triangle. You know, in the past, we had this slogan, ZIL Planet. I think this should be a unique urban facility. I guess it's not the business of developers, but rather the city. They should find similar places. Maybe something super great of urban scale should be built there, like the branch of Hermitage Museum, or I don't know, a super modern concert hall or something like that, you know, to make it a landmark. And a bit of criticism regarding the highway along MCK. I want to say that our mission was to plan these transport corridors for the future and in case of necessity to build them. Well, it was done in the past, but today we understand that to ZIL we will have 2 metro lines coming, Biryulova metro station in the future and also Kommunarskaya metro line. In long-term future there will be 2 metro lines there. It is good that back in the past, when we were developing ZIL project, we embedded the possibility of having 2 metro stations there. Back in the past, we didn't believe that those 2 lines will be ever built, but they will be built. I want to say that in the past, we didn't have any other big urban transport than the metro stations. Today we are discussing MCK. Maybe you can discuss this main road with the city, and at the expense of it, maybe you can expand your park. From the perspective of the tools, how to link your interests with the urban interests of the city authorities, I want to share my experience. In ZIL Sever, in ZIL North, we had a council in Moscow architecture where we were discussing different elements of the road network. You need to find the organizational tools, platforms or sites to impact the implementation of the urban programs in Moscow. Any plans that the city has with this territory. Thank you very much, Vitaly, and special thanks for your recommendations in terms of operational management, because we will have a lot of work ahead. And thank you very much indeed, because we perceive your work as the starting point of our work. So thank you very much for your kind words. Dear colleagues, please, each of you speak for 2 weeks. I'm sorry, not 2 weeks, 2 minutes. 2 minutes, my tongue is slipping. 2 minutes, of course, not 2 weeks. Andrei, please. Yes, I quickly turn on my mic and I quickly turn it off. What I want to say is I do support your work. It's a quality work. it's an iconic work for this phase, for this stage. And it's very didactic for me in particular. Because if you are involved in a similar topic, it's really valuable to have this great template of your project in front of my eyes. Regarding the adaptation of your work to the existing design master plan, I agree with Vitaly that all these things should be fixed in the project, the boulevard, the new park, although they are aligned in other districts and with other functional connotation, but you need to fix it the way you imagined it. The public use territory. If you fail to do this, this needs to be clearly done. And the question, either this park belongs to you or to the city, it doesn't bear any ambiguity. This park should be an urban park, I believe, just like the streets. If you leave these parks as a burden for the residents will become bankrupt. They will have lots of conflicts there in terms of who does it belong to, and you will stop any diffusion with the city that you were planning initially. So please clearly divide it. Give it to the city to make your life easy. Second thing, the new additional pedestrian mesh of roads. It seems to me that you have a very equal spread of public ground floors throughout the territory, but this doesn't happen in real life. You will always have hotspots with more dense, let's say, and more vibrant places and more remote places. These remote places, tenants will find it very difficult to be there because they will not be so frequently visited. Please keep in mind the hierarchy of these ground floors, and maybe you have too many of them given to the public spaces. Maybe in some places it makes more sense to build flats, apartments, because you will have quiet streets and a residential ground floor is more feasible. Keep it in mind. And second thing, regarding the morphology of construction, I would support your solution. The low-rise level of the historical Moscow, and then the towers here and there to add uniqueness. I agree with you. And I want to argue with Vitaly regarding my attitude to the PPT framework. I think, Vitaly, right now, KCAP is quite right about the buildings near the water line, low-rise buildings closer to the water, and then amphitheater principle as you go deeper. I think this is a right approach. It gives more windows a look on the water. So I support this morphology near the water line. This is it. Thank you. Thank you, Yuri Borisov. Yuli Borisov, I'm sorry. I think that this project is a wonderful indicator of how things are done in Moscow. There's a great PPT, there is a wonderful work of colleagues, and importantly, not only developers are working here, but social scientists as well, etc. And the company does take care about the quality of life in this neighborhood. So I love your approach. I love the way you program the space. Of course, there are lots of things that will be developed and enhanced and altered at later stages because this is life. Life goes on and life will introduce its amendments. And some things will be added later. And I think the residents also will introduce their own adjustments as they start living there. The city is changing. The most important thing is you have the goal, you have the desire, and the practice shows that indeed Everybody wants to make a beautiful part of the city that people will be proud of. So I do support this project with all my heart. Thank you very much. Alexander? Alexander Asadov, I support definitely all the points of the project. I want to draw your attention to the following. Number one, engineering part should be as important as the transport one, because your priority should be given to the complete integration of the engineering systems in the ground floors or elsewhere, to avoid having a situation like we had in renovation project, because as a result they neglected engineering systems and they had 3 layers of engineering facilities. And here you are lucky to have everything in one hand. Mosvodokanal, Mosenergo, you need to keep them in an iron fist, because these 2 agencies are monopolists. They dictate their own requirements. If you fail to be tough with them, you will have challenges with the engineering, infrastructure, and nice embedding of them. Second thing, guest parking is something painful. In the already constructed part of ZIL that hasn't been populated, the guest parkings are full. They are busy always. So it's a challenge. And you know, this problem of Moscow, when in the public spaces you have temporarily parked cars, this is obvious in the central parts of ZIL and even beyond the Moscow Ring Road, even in Spain, in the residential districts in Spain, this problem is everywhere. How to solve this problem? Maybe part of the underground parking should be allocated for guest parkings. This problem will not go away anywhere. You know, those who use public transport, they have to go back to their vehicles again because of COVID pandemics. Let's keep it in mind. I like very much your idea about giving some functions of the secondary schools to public evening events, etc. Apart from this, keep in mind sports as well. You will have a nice alternative to either build the network of facilities like swimming pools, etc., or to expand the sport facilities in the schools. A big swimming pool, a big stadium next to the school, and how to operate, and discuss it with the Department of Education, how to co-use it. And last thing is, we have really tough norms in Moscow regarding the green spaces adjacent to the buildings and the paths or passages for the firefighting machines. There should be a particular width of greenery next to the building and a particular requirement for the firefighting machine. Keep it in mind. To avoid a picture when you have prevalent greenery and you consume all the parts that should be otherwise allocated to the firefighting machines, this is something to keep in mind. As for insulation, at this stage, it is really important to avoid any failures in insulation. There were some problems when small miscalculations of insulation at the early stages will lead to some problems at later stages. So keep in mind that at this stage, insulation should be done impeccably. This is it from my side. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mikhail Mikhailovich. Posokhin, hello, welcome, hello everybody. I want to say that it rarely happens to have a chance to listen to such a beautiful presentation and to listen about such a deep development of the territory. I would say that this is a very illustrative example for all of us. It's great for our further work, so I definitely support this project. And I want to say that considering the fact that we will have stage 3 ahead, everybody raised really valuable comments. Myself, I only want to say the following. In this project, from what I heard, I believe it's really important to model the landscape. All these access roads, pedestrian routes, and highways, they all require different planning, design structure regarding the height. So please draw special attention to it. I think that, I guess you partially involve the city authorities here. So we need to express our crucial support to the decisions and solutions of this project. And please put it down in the minutes of meeting. Also, a number of viaducts that connect this territory with adjacent areas. I would strongly advise you, colleagues, don't postpone anything for the future. Try to capture the maximum in each project, in each phase. Try to capture the maximum of your concepts and creations. Because later in life, as we know, only part of your concept will be implemented. This is life, you know. In this connection, I think that the territory of Marc Chagall embankment, this part, you know, it's really a pity to see that your only connection with it is this underground passage. You know, in the past when we were designing the Moscow city, there was this solution there when the platform was going over the highway and it was like a green lane to connect the city to the embankment. So if you want to make a certain connection or an underground passage, it shouldn't look ugly and terrible like we have, you know, we have lots of them in Moscow. Make it a developed public space if it is possible. Please try to think about it to make this underground passage, let's say, more vitalized, or make it elevated on a certain platform, not underground. But of course, the way you handled the green spaces in the project is just admirable. You know, I am not a proponent of making bicycles a fetish. Bicycles are probably nice for countries like the Netherlands, but in Russia, we have 9 months a year, winter, sludge, slime, and other ugly things on the roads. The climate is not the best, so please keep in mind the use of vehicles. Maybe someday we will have environmentally friendly vehicles. Don't limit yourself in there with bicycles only. I think that at phase 3, you will solve many of these kind of questions. And it was wisely mentioned by the previous commentators that the, let's say, the level of activity in different places will be different. And these hotspots, the ground floors in these most vibrant parts of your project, don't only plan to have some permanent places there. Why not think about some covered markets? Because some nice covered markets are already built in Moscow and they are really popular. Otherwise, I think this project deserves congratulations to the authors on this work. I like it very much. Thank you very much, Alexander Obtsimailo. Good evening, colleagues. I will be concise. I definitely support this project. I think it's a beautiful and successful project. and there's a lot of progress and development in this project in comparison with the master plan that we had before. And this is normal. This is a nice development. I feel a pity for this boulevard that goes throughout this whole pedestrian area. It has a zigzag shape, and there were no objective solutions to make it straight. Straight would be better, in my opinion, instead of making these complicated Z shapes. And second thing, I would probably disagree with Andrei Kuznetsov regarding the fact that these terraces of the residential area near the embankment are nice. You know, there's a big scale on the embankment. It's river, it's water, and they give large scale. And it gives an opportunity, on the other hand, to make a really cozy urban development inside. But on the edges, I think high-rise buildings would be better. As for the number of flats or apartments that will get the waterfront view, that's not so, I would say, high. Otherwise, beautiful work, keep working, everything is nice. Thank you very much, Alexander. Nikolai Lashenko? I'll try to be concise. In my opinion, it's a well-developed professional project. And we all know that any project of this scale, it has certain stages of programming, designing, etc. So this master plan, together with the park and structure, park in the city, and a certain logic of the boulevards, enables us to continue the work on this project in a quality manner, to have the steps in programming, and to achieve quality in any zone. I asked a question in the beginning, so I want to reiterate to it. I would probably focus your attention to the possible monotonous nature of the boulevard that you may have later on. The colleagues already mentioned this monotonous nature of the boulevard. Maybe you will have some pulsing points along the boulevard. Maybe you can think of some squares, some focal points along the boulevard, and they would probably not be integrated on the ground floors. Think about them at the next phase to make the life of pedestrians vibrant as possible. That's my only comment. Otherwise, congratulations, beautiful professional project. Thank you. Vladimir Plotnikov? Thank you. Indeed, great job, great project, good analysis. Everything is done in a quality way. I like very much, and I personally find it very attractive, the diversity of city clusters. It's good, you know. Without this, the city is not complete. But it seemed to me a little bit that the proposed development is a bit anemic. The proposed iconic dominants are there, but maybe you need one focal building or some very daring type of the park, you know, something very daring to give the tone, to set the mood for the architects who are going to build around. Otherwise, beautiful project. This is much from my side. Thank you, Vadim Gryadov. Vadim, your microphone, please. Hello, sorry. Well, in fact, the more speakers you listen to, the less they have to say, because it makes no sense to repeat what my colleagues said. Indeed, it's a beautiful project in many senses. The presentation was comprehensive. It conveys the territory. It gives a full understanding of ideas and concepts. Of course, we see the harmony and balance of all the spatial territories. All these passages, pedestrian routes, parks, smaller parks, bigger parks, etc. And I think it was mentioned before, but I think it's a beautiful development of a dry document called PPT. Regarding the typology of buildings, there were two opinions, yes. Vitaly said that the row of high-rise buildings along the waterline would be an advantage. Alexander supported him, I guess, but I still think that a line of high-rise buildings that form like a fence, a line of low-rise buildings on the waterline that act like a fence, maybe you could hide them inside of the district and make high-rise buildings outside, closer to the waterline. This is my short comment. Otherwise, beautiful project. As for the diagonal, I want to say that the diagonal may seem to be a bit strange, as different from the one that is in Barcelona. In Barcelona, the diagonal was built after the city was developed, but here you are developing from the scratch. The more I looked at the diagonal, the more I thought it is necessary and it should be present in your project. It's a beautiful project. We can discuss many more details. It envisages a great future and a great potential. It's hard to spoil a project like this, you know? Thank you. I can only support it. Thank you very much. Timur Bashkaev, please. Hello, friends. I want to join all the compliments. Great job, everybody. An important comment that will improve not only the territory but the city in general. The new transport junction, MTK plus 2 metro stations, is grand for Moscow. And in terms of territory, function, and the number of stories in the buildings, should be considered there. These junctions will have an impact on your district. And most probably in this place there will be an urban agglomeration center. Maybe you can enhance this junction of 2 metro lines and MTK. Consider density there, consider all the norms, because there you could probably build a big and powerful public center to raise the profile of your district too. It's better to do it now because there will be a commercial pressure of this junction in the future on your district. I think it would be good to consider it now. Thank you so much. And special thanks for your beautiful urban background that is always changing and the blue sky, as usual. Thank you. We're trying to define where you are, but Timur is in Brooklyn. Brooklyn, it's the US. Yeah, it's a pair. Yeah, cheap things. Yeah, it's Brooklyn. Thank you, everybody. It's my turn, right? Yes, Nikita. Thank you. Great project. I think all the ideas that you raised in it deserve full support. What matters for me is that this is a project about the future. It's a bright future, beautiful future. And we want to arrive in this future. And in this sense, it's important to think about how this project will be implemented, because we're not talking only about this construction and how to build a boulevard, how to I think that the municipal school today the municipal school is surrounded by the fence. Of course, you can paint the fence green, but in fact, the school will be barred. There is no access to the school apart from those who are students or teachers or parents. You need to think about some legal arrangements with the schools to provide access for the residents, to the swimming pools, to the libraries, to the sports hall, for the residents. I think these mechanisms are as important as architecture and design. I am really happy that Peter is here from the very start of the project. It makes me hopeful. It means that we can think and take care not only about architecture and planning, but also about how to create public opinion and come to this result. I hope that this result we will finally see this result. Yes, thank you very much, Nikita. I want to say that we do appreciate our collaboration with Marsh School of Architecture, because you nurture us with your expert opinion and public discussion as well. Thank you very much. And Yuri Burdu, please. Hello, colleagues. First of all, I want to congratulate the colleagues, the clients, city makers with the successful development and continuation of this project. I have to say that a year ago, when we started developing this site, our mission was non-classical. We had to make proposals without having a master plan. It was a very reversive situation, and of course we felt responsible. We made decisions, but now the decisions turn out to be good. We see the complete picture. I think that this work is really very much needed on this side. Also, I have a small comment. It's not a comment, but something you need to think about. On this territory, you have these 4 large kindergartens. Of course, they will finally come out as a result of planning, but take enough care. There are no buildings along the street. There's either a big park, it is barred with a fence, and then how will we perceive the territory? Maybe it is possible to design kindergartens individually so that they could be connected with the perimeter in the future. Thank you, Julia. Thank you very much. Colleagues, thank you very much. We are really late, beyond our time. I want to say special thanks to the audience that is watching us in the broadcasting. Architecture is beautiful, and it is always an attractive topic, and the best way to spend a Thursday night to listen to this concept, I believe it's a decent thing to do. Thank you very much to our partners, to Arch Council Portal, Marsh School of Architecture. Please follow the news. Please follow the events on our platform called Generation Zil. We'll be in regular touch with you, and we will surely show you the results of our further work in a similar format. Thank you very much, and I wish you